Zero turned around and looked at her. What if I say it is because of you? What will you do? Lyra searched his face, looking for the truth. She could not see the passionate look that was always there when he confessed to her before. Is it really? She asked him. A small smile flitted across his lips, then he shrugged. You rejected me multiple times. You'd only think I am a nuisance if I didn't let go. Relieved to hear that, Lyra asked, so why? Just because I let go does not mean my heart did not break, he said. After a moment's pause, Lyra asked, is that all you feel? Zero looked at her without saying anything for a while. Then he walked back towards the window and took a seat. Lyra followed him and sat across the table from him, watching him and waiting for his response. When he met her eyes, she could see the conflict in his own. I am not sure I know what I feel. When I first saw her, I wanted to run to her and hold her. But I couldn't. What do you mean you couldn't? She asked, not in judgment but curiously. Ever since I met you, I did not think there would be anyone else for me, he confessed. I could not think of being with anyone but you, so when she showed up, even though I felt the connection between us, my instinct was to fight against it. I'd let you go, but there was a part of me that did not want to give that space to someone else. Do you still feel like that? She asked, not as strongly, but he trailed off with a smile. I meant every word I said to you, and I never thought I was the kind to take some things lightly. I've never been the kind of person who just says something because it'll get me what I want. You are not, Lyra said. I believe you meant everything you said. If you weren't sincere, you wouldn't fight against your natural instincts just to stay true to yourself. But I was not the right person for you, so it is okay if you forget about it. Now, you have someone to devote yourself to. You shouldn't let the past get in the way of that. Zero looked towards the window and rubbed his forehead. You won't think I am? Flaky, Lyra chuckled. Of course not. If you are flaky, I don't know what to say about everybody else. He looked back at her with a soft smile. It is funny how you've made sense of it all so easily. It didn't seem that way to me. Since you thought it had to do with your integrity, which you care about a lot, of course it would not have been easy for you to sort through, she told him. She placed her hands on the table and linked her fingers. So, does this mean you have nothing against Anna personally? What would I have against her? He asked. She looks so delicate, vulnerable. From the beginning, Lyra had thought it unlikely that Zero would be biased against Anna because of her background. Regardless, hearing it from him was a huge relief. She looks like that, but she is strong. She has been through a lot and she survived. Staying with the witches was not easy for her. I guessed as much, Zero said. They don't really like our kind. No, they don't, Lyra agreed. They had initially intended to use her for experiments to create corrupted wolves. When they found out she had substantial magic power, they decided she was of better use as one of them. Since then, they have been using her powers and controlling her while also treating her like an outsider. Zero's jaw tightened as he gritted his teeth. He had known that Anna must have been abducted by the witches, but he had not thought that they would have been abusing her if they made her one of their own. The thought of what she must have gone through in a place where everyone hated her made his blood boil. And now, he felt guilty for having been one of the people to make her feel unwelcome at the palace. He had thought his indifference would turn her off, but she kept coming to him, obviously trying to get on his good side. I feel like shit, he said. It is not too late to fix it, Lyra said. Anna was really happy to meet her mate. Despite what she is going through, she has maintained a happy face today, however. It is like she hit a wall. You are the only one who can keep her from spiraling. He swallowed. Is she all right? She'll be fine for the night. She already went to bed. I'll go to see her tomorrow, he said. Really? Lyra teased with a smile. Zero shrugged, but with a smile of his own. Who am I to turn down the goddess's blessing? Sedend. Sabi. The next evening, a smiley-faced Anna showed up at Lyra's room. Lyra had been at training all day, so she had not seen Anna since checking in on her in the morning. "What is that big smile for?" she asked teasingly after stepping aside to let Anna in. When she turned around after closing the door, Anna engulfed her in a tight hug. "Thank you." Lyra returned her hug, surprised. "What did I do? Can you believe that Zero talked to me today?" Anna asked, pulling back and looking at Lyra with shining eyes. "And not just that, we also had breakfast and dinner together. He was so nice, I thought I was dreaming." "You were not," Lyra said with a chuckle. "That is Zero being himself." Anna took Lyra's hand between hers and held it to her chest. "Thank you so much. I know it is all you're doing." She blinked, her eyes getting watery. "I tried to harm you, but you've been nothing but good to me. How can I ever repay you?" "You were forced to harm me. Don't forget that," Lyra told her. "About the repayment, I can do with a friend," Anna laughed. "I am already your friend. Then that is enough. You are my friend, and I'd do anything to see you smile." Anna squeezed her hands. "Well, as your friend, I think there is something I can do for you. While I was with the witches, I trained under a great witch doctor. I learned rare skills that most werewolf healers have never heard of, let alone practice. With those skills, I can help with your transformation." "Really?" Lyra asked, her eyes widening. "Are you sure?" "Yeah," Anna said, biting her lower lip. "But that is if you are okay with it. I understand if you don't want anything to do with what I learned from witches. That is why I never mentioned it before." "Will it harm me or anyone?" Lyra asked. Anna shook her head. It has nothing to do with spells or poisons or curses. It is something any healer of any kind can use. It is just that it is an ancient method that not many use now. There are no dark powers involved. "Well then, I am 100% on board," Lyra told her. "I trust you," Anna smiled widely. "Thank you. I can't wait. You'll become the greatest she-wolf to ever live," Lyra laughed. "You sound like my wolf, Ray." "Well, we are right," Ray piped in. "Sounds like a smart wolf," Anna said, grinning. In the coming weeks, Lyra's mental and physical strength grew rapidly with Anna's guidance. Anna's healing methods did away with most of the difficulties that she had mentioned before about Lyra's transformatio, while Lyra's body and mind underwent significant changes. There was no undue stress on her. Meanwhile, Anna's own status in the palace had improved significantly. After finding out her connection to Zero, the bullies who had thought she was an easy pick backed away. And, since Zero did not tolerate any kind of trash talk about his mate, the vicious gossiping also died down. Anna was also heavily involved in the research on the corrupted wolves, and her contribution proved to be immensely helpful. This changed the perception of the palace officials working on the case about her as it became clear that she was not one of the enemies. While Lyra and Anna were having a good time, it was the opposite for Crystal. She had not given up on making Lyra's life a living hell despite the strict warnings from Julian. But this time, Lyra seemed to have someone who was always watching out for her Rihanna. The more Anna got in the way of her plans, the more frustrated Crystal became. Eventually, she decided to teach her a lesson. One day while Anna was walking down a corridor, a door opened suddenly and someone grabbed her. After being dragged inside and shoved to the floor, she saw that her assailant was Crystal. "What are you doing?" Anna demanded. "Trying to get up." Crystal kicked her, sending her sprawling to the floor. "This is your fault," Crystal said, walking around her. "If only you had kept out of my business, I never would have looked in the direction of a disgusting witch like you." "I am not a witch," Anna said. "You are," Crystal insisted, kicking Anna in the stomach. Anna grabbed her belly and curled in pain. "And let me tell you, I can take everything from you in an instant if I wish to. Do you understand? I am the daughter of the Alpha of Blacksword and soon to be queen of this kingdom. What do you think will happen to you if I tell everyone that you've been messing with my head, trying to get me to betray my kind? What? Anna gasped. I've done no such thing. It doesn't matter. What matters is who they'll believe, and it won't be some stupid witch, Crystal spat. Everybody else in this palace seems to have lost their mind, but I am not blind. I cannot live in a place stinking with despicable creatures like you, and I'll fix that. If you know what is good for you, stay out of my way. Crystal left, leaving Anna on the floor with tears flowing down her cheeks. After that, Anna tried to stay out of Crystal's way. But despite that, Crystal always found excuses to antagonize her. Anna knew that even though her situation at the palace had improved, things could change if someone as powerful as Crystal made accusations. Knowing how werewolf hierarchy worked, she could not imagine that anyone would believe her over Crystal. So, the only thing she could do was endure Crystal's bullying in silence. Zero had mentioned that at some point they would go back to his pack, so it was only for a moment of time. While Anna was determined to act like nothing was wrong, Lyra eventually noticed that her friend was hiding something. After witnessing a couple of suspicious interactions between Anna and Crystal, Lyra told Zero about her concerns. Together, they decided to keep a close eye on Anna to see whether something was going on. Please let me go, Anna pleaded as she scrambled to her feet and quickly moved away from the giant lizard behind her. The beast had almost snapped her foot off just a second ago, and she did not have enough strength to keep running. Let me out of here! Crystal's lips curled with an evil smile at the sound of desperation in Anna's voice. Why should I? You haven't shown me any tricks yet. You witches are famous for killing werewolves without lifting a hand. You are not getting out of here until you kill it. I can't! Anna screamed, pressing up against the wall of the empty pool and shuffling farther away from the lizard. I've never used magic to kill anyone. I don't know how. That is too bad, Crystal said, looking at her nails in boredom. If you can't kill it, it'll kill you. It has not eaten anything in days. Why are you doing this to me? Anna cried, tears running down her face. She could not keep going for much longer. If Crystal did not let her go, the lizard would catch her soon and tear her to pieces. I stay out of your way. You are still in this palace, aren't you? Crystal asked, sneering. She added, like your little friend, you latched onto a noble male and seduced him. If I am not careful, this palace will turn into a brothel run over by whores like you. The lizard charged and Anna broke into a run towards the other end of the pool. Her clothes were torn and bloody from the times the lizard had attacked her. Every part of her body hurt like hell. Did Crystal want to kill her? After weeks of torment, was this the end? If the lizard devoured her, no one would find her body. She had tried crying for help, but each time Crystal subdued her with her mental control. Each time Anna ran for the ladder on one side of the pool, Crystal did the same, using her mind to push her back with a powerful force. I'll do anything you want, Anna cried. Just let me go, please. Crystal tilted her head from side to side, thinking, anything, yes. Anna confirmed in desperation, anything. All right, Crystal said. She walked around the edge of the pool to where Anna was. The lizard was now circling halfway across the pool, as if strategizing on its next attack. Anna looked at Crystal with hopeful, teary eyes. Crystal came to a stop in front of her, icy eyes looking at her. Well then, I want you to die. Can you do that? How, bae? Anna had thought she would ask her to leave the palace, to which she would have agreed. But it turned out Crystal was just toying with her. Please, Anna cried. Crystal scoffed. Pathetic, she spat. Turning to walk away, she said, I don't understand how lowly beings like you can bear to live, utterly useless. The sound of heavy footfalls brought Anna's attention back to the lizard. It was coming at her at full speed. And despite her wishes, she became frozen to the ground. She wanted to run, but her body felt powerless, weak. The lizard opened its mouth, exposing its sharp teeth. A moment later, Anna dropped to the ground, fainting from shock. Crystal hesitated when she saw the lizard charging towards the unconscious female. Sure, she wanted her dead, but what if Julian found out? She did not want to get in trouble, but also, how would he find out? Who would care if a lowly witch disappeared? Everybody would say she had been a spy all along and had gone back to the witches. She smiled. The palace would be a much better place without her, so she did not do anything to stop the lizard as he got closer to Anna. But just when he was a few feet away from her, he stopped suddenly and dropped onto his belly. Anna! Someone screamed. Crystal turned to find Lyra rushing towards the pool, a dart gun in her hand. She jumped into the empty pool and ran to Anna. Anna! She called frantically, lifting her onto her lap. Anna! A few seconds later, Zero appeared on the scene. Crystal watched as he jumped into the pool and took Anna into his arms. He listened to her breathing and checked her pulse. She is alive! She is alive! He said with great relief. You! Lyra snapped sharply, looking at Crystal. What did she ever do to you? Crystal cleared her throat and held her head high, her arms across her chest. What are you talking about? Zero glared at her. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you want to kill her? Why are you blaming me? Crystal snapped. I did not throw her into the pool. I know you are behind this. Zero yelled, his eyes turning red. You've been bullying her. But this is way too much. Crystal scoffed. Watch what you accuse me of, she retorted. She wanted to show me her witchy powers, hoping I would take her into my service. It is her fault she couldn't fight the lizard. You are full of shit, Zero growled, and I'll see to it that you pay for this. You'll regret ever targeting her. Fear trickled down Crystal's spine, but she did not show it. Zero looked like he could shred her to pieces in that moment. He was part of the royal family, an enemy she did not want to have. But she could not let him think she was afraid of him. You are pathetic, she spat, her voice full of disgust. A male of your noble blood tarnishing yourself with a dirty witch. Do your elders know about your relationship with her? That is none of your business. Zero snapped, holding Anna carefully as he got to his feet. The only thing you should concern yourself with is how to explain this to the king, said. After taking Anna to the infirmary and ensuring she was in stable condition, Zero went to see Julian. Your fiancé tried to kill Anna, he said as soon as he burst through the door. What? Julian asked, looking up from his work. She trapped Anna in the unused pool with a giant lizard. If Lyra and I had not gotten there on time, she would have been shredded to pieces. Julian stood up from his chair and walked around his desk. Is she okay? She has lost a lot of blood, but she'll be fine, Zero said. What will you do about Crystal? I'll punish her, Julian told him. Punish? Zero growled. Do you still intend to take that evil witch as your queen? She tried to kill my future Luna? How can someone like her become the queen of this kingdom? Julian hesitated for a moment before asking. You've decided to make her your Luna. Zero blinked. Decide. He hadn't actually thought about it, but in his anger and desire to see Crystal thoroughly punished, he had said that all he knew was that he wanted Crystal to be expelled from the palace, and harming the future Luna of the Azure Pack was a serious enough crime to warrant that. Don't worry, I'll get rid of her, Julian said, when Zero did not answer. I don't need her anymore. Ever since that day when he marked Lyra, he found that he could not stand Crystal at all. He wanted no one but Lyra. He could not even put on a show to pretend like he wanted Crystal. Her personality had also proved to be so much fouler than he had thought. Now, she had given him the perfect reason to end the engagement and throw her out of the palace. She had not been very useful in the investigation against Alpha Black, and he could find the information he needed without her. Soon, the truth would be revealed. She has done more than enough in the past, and now to lose her position as the future queen, Julian said. That'll be enough to support my decision to abruptly end the engagement. Early the next morning, Crystal was roused by her maidservant, who informed her that royal guards had stormed the villa. When she went to see them, the guards delivered a royal edict announcing the annulling of the engagement and ordering her to pack up and leave the palace as soon as possible. Stomping forward, she grabbed the document and looked at it, as if doubting the guards' words. Scoffing, she ripped the paper into pieces and started towards the door. "This is bullshit. I'll see the king myself." Two of the guards stood in her way, blocking her path to the door. "The king has ordered that you are not allowed to go anywhere. Our orders are to watch you pack and escort you out of the palace." "Get out of my way!" Crystal snapped, paying no heed to their words. "I am not the kind of person you can treat like this. I demand to see the king right away." "If you insist," the guard said, "we'll have to force you to leave without your stuff." Crystal could see more guards stationed outside the villa, and she knew they meant every word. How could Julian do this to her? Did he forget that she was the daughter of Alpha Black? Where did he get the nerve to annul the engagement out of nowhere and then throw her out of the palace like a common thief? "You've all gone crazy," she yelled, turning away from the guards. "This kingdom has become a joke. Wait until I get back home. Don't think my pack will just let this go." Seeing a vase near her, she grabbed it and threw it towards the guards. She nearly hit one of them, but he stepped aside quickly. "I'll make you pay," she snarled, pointing at them. "I am Crystal Black. No one treats me like this and gets away with it. You are all making a mistake and you'll be sorry." Sad. One day's hin. Shortly after Crystal left the palace, rumors sprung all over the kingdom about the Lycan King's cancelled engagement to the daughter of the Alpha of the Black Sword Pack. Before long, everybody knew that Julian had chosen another female over Crystal Black. How can he insult such a powerful pack for a nobody? One of the palace maids asked as a group of servants worked in the kitchen one morning. "I knew there was something about her as soon as she showed up here." "I knew something was up when he changed the laws," another one added. "She seduced him and bewitched him. Why else would he choose her over Crystal Black?" Alphas all over the kingdom would kill to get Crystal's hand in marriage. All over the kingdom, werewolves were questioning the wisdom of the Lycan King's decision. His lover has no background, no power. What does she bring to the table? "We have been cursed with a foolish king. Our enemies will think we are an easy pick." It is time the elders stepped in. If the royal pack behaves like this, we are all doomed. Just because they are the rulers does not mean they can do whatever they want. If he does not want to be the Lycan King anymore, he can step down. We have many powerful alphas who can do what it takes to protect our kingdom. What a disgrace! Besides his choice of Luna, the king's authority also came under strict scrutiny. Word of the research on the corrupted wolves spread, and many packs expressed dissatisfaction at the progress. Some went as far as disregarding the king's policies, with many disobeying the newly established laws. Before long, it was clear that the royal pack's reputation was under serious threat. Seeing this, the Elders' Council of the Royal Pack requested a meeting with the king. When Julian finally met them, the chief elder asked, "We have been hearing rumors and we have come here today to hear the truth of the matter from you. Is it true that you bonded with an Omega after canceling your engagement with Crystal Black?" "Yes," Julian answered, without hesitating, looking around the table of the gathered elders. Shocked gasps could be heard around the room as the elders exchanged shocked looks. "We cannot allow it," the chief said, his tone going from conversational to forceful. "Crystal Black was from a respectable pack, and we had approved her as the future queen of this kingdom. Get rid of that other female at once." "I am afraid I can't do that," Julian said coolly. "What do you mean you can't?" Another elder snapped. "Have you heard what others are saying about our pack? They think you should step down from the throne. We have ruled this kingdom for many centuries, and none of your forefathers has shamed our family in this manner." "Who I mate with is my own personal business," Julian said. And as the Lycan king, I decide who becomes queen. This is none of your business. This is unacceptable, the chief asserted. You are the Lycan king, and your mate affects the fate of the entire kingdom. We have looked into your lover's background. We know she used to be mated to Alpha Devon of the Red Moon Pack. We also know that he rejected her because she was a dirty whore. You cannot allow you to soil the name of our pack with her. Julian glared at the male, his eyes flashing with warning. I would watch how I address the future queen if I were you. Looking around the table, he said, I am the king, and my word is final. I will not take any insults or attacks directed towards my mate kindly. I waited for years for my mate to show up, and now she is here. She is going nowhere. Your Majesty, please think about this carefully, a much calmer elder pleaded. The dignity of our pack is at risk, and packs are rising against your authority. There are many females in the kingdom who are more worthy of becoming the queen. You can have any of them. No one, Julian said firmly, and no one but my fated Lyra Jenkins will become the Luna Queen of this kingdom. I am done here. Rising from his seat, he left the room without another word. Behind him, he left dozens of bulging eyes, red faces, and fists banging the table. When Lyra heard about Julian canceling his engagement to Crystal, she felt grateful. After what Crystal had done to Anna, it would have been too much if Julian had still allowed her to stay at the palace and even become the future queen. She was fully aware of the rumors gathering speed around the palace and outside about Julian choosing her over Crystal. How she wished that were true. Him canceling his engagement had nothing to do with her. It just turned out he had some conscience and would not marry someone who tried to harm his cousin's mate. But the rumors only kept growing, and she could practically feel the animosity surrounding her. Since Julian was doing nothing to stop it, she decided to see him about it. After work that day, she followed him to his suite. Clear it of what? He asked her when she asked whether he intended on clearing her name. You know what everybody has been saying about me, she told him. It would be nice if you gave an explanation and made it clear that your decision had nothing to do with me. But it did, he said, heading to the bar and pouring 2 glasses of wine. He held one towards her, but she shook her head as she frowned. What? He put her glass down and took a sip of his wine. The elders came to see me today. I know. I told them that no one but you would be the Luna Queen of this kingdom, he revealed. Lyra blinked. What? Julian's mouth turned up in a closed smile. Putting his wine down, he walked to her. You heard what I said. You, Lyra Jenkins, are my mate and future queen. Lyra blinked again and shook her head. I don't understand. What? Don't you understand? Lyra looked at him like he had grown a second head all of a sudden. Why would he say that to the elders? Why would he let everybody believe that he had turned down Crystal for her? What exactly was he playing at? You said. All those things you said. I can't be your queen. He had made sure she never forgot exactly why she was not fit enough to be his queen. Even when he no longer insulted her background or rank, he brought another female to the palace to be his future queen. He had said she could only be his mistress. So what on earth was he going on about? Forget what I said, he told her. I want no one but you by my side. Why the sudden change of mind? She questioned, suspicious of his motive behind it. Julian reached for her hand and stroked her wrist with his thumb. I wouldn't call it sudden. I haven't been able to stay away from you for a while now. As for Crystal, I never intended to marry her. I needed her to investigate her pack. Was that what he had been referring to when he asked her to wait for him? She had thought that he was hiding something, and Asher had also made a comment suggesting that not everything was as it appeared to be. But even if it was true that he had never intended on marrying Crystal, it did not entirely explain his change of mind. You don't care about my background anymore? She asked him. We were meant to be together, he told her. I looked all over the kingdom for you. Now I don't want you to go anywhere. Will you have me? Do I have a choice? She quipped. He studied her face for a few silent moments. Do you still want to leave? Did she? Not as badly as she had wanted to leave, with Crystal looming the halls of the palace and her mate rubbing his betrayal in her face. Now she could stay in the palace and pursue her dreams without worrying about the pain caused by having to witness her mate with someone else. But her staying had nothing to do with him. She had been waiting to hear that he had selected another alpha female as his next queen. As long as he chose someone else, she was going to leave, one way or another. But now, had he really told the elders that she would be the Luna Queen? They must have had heart attacks. Surely, he must know what everyone in the kingdom felt about him canceling his engagement to Crystal in favor of a nobody like her. And yet, he had gone and made such a bold claim in front of the elders. Julian lifted his other hand and cupped her cheek. I've not treated you the best in the past, and I want to spend the rest of my life making up for my past actions. Ray shrieked with giddiness, jolting Lyra. Lyra sent her a warning to calm down. She could not simply forget everything. He had caused her so much pain with how he had treated her. By now, all the reasons she could not be his queen were deeply ingrained in her mind. Even during the times they had good moments together, those facts still hung over them. You don't believe me, he noted, brushing his thumb over her skin. He leaned down and gave her a soft kiss. Do you blame me? She whispered. No, he replied. It is all my fault. I'll prove myself to you, okay? Lyra did not know what to say. After all the ups and downs, could she trust him? She had hoped so many times before, only to be massively disappointed. It was better to not have any expectations. When she said nothing, Julian took her in his arms and carried her to the bed. He laid her down on it and then lay beside her. He kissed her on the lips again before moving on to her forehead. His lips moved downwards towards her chin and down to her throat. Lyra threw her head back and bit her lip, wondering whether she was making a mistake. His kisses were driving her crazy, her heart thudding in her chest and her skin tingling all over. She could feel Ray's exhilaration pouring over her like a coat of paint. Was this really happening? Did he mean what he said? When he woke up the next morning, she was still in his bed. She was also awake, which surprised him all the more because he would have thought she would bolt as soon as she woke up. You stayed, he said, his voice rough from sleep. She looked at him, a look of uncertainty on her face. Looks like it. He did not like the uncertainty on her face. She was afraid he would change his mind. He had to get rid of that fear. Good, he said, sliding his hand into her hair and bringing his mouth to hers. I wasn't done with you. Anna was leaving the library late one night when she noticed a movement to her left. Normally, she would have been alert, but she could tell it was Zero even before he stepped out of the shadows and into the light. What are you doing here? She asked as he walked towards her. Waiting for you, he told her. Me, he nodded. I'll walk you back to your room. Were you waiting for long? She asked him. You could have come inside to get me. I did not want to distract you, he told her. You get really absorbed when you are reading. Well, that was true, but she wouldn't have minded if he had gone inside for her. He was right. She would have been thoroughly distracted, but she wouldn't have minded it a bit. I am done now, she said with a shy smile. They had been hanging out a lot lately, but she still got flustered when he was being all sweet. Stepping forward, Zero leaned down and gave her a short, soft kiss to her lips. I missed you, he whispered when he pulled away. Anna's face heated up while her heart beat crazily. I missed you too, he smiled and reached for her hand. Have you had dinner yet? She nodded. Yes, before I came to the library. All right, he said. Let me walk you to your room. Anna did not want to go to her room so soon. She wanted to spend some more time with him. The sky is so beautiful tonight. Zero followed her gaze upwards. It was a clear sky with the stars twinkling brilliantly. Yeah, Do you want to go and sit in the garden for a while? Anna asked him. It'd be a shame to let it go to waste. Zero looked down at her and chuckled. You are right. They walked to the garden behind the library and sat down on one of the benches, staring up at the sky. Zero put an arm on her shoulders and pulled her into his side. They sat in the peaceful silence, occasionally pointing things out in the sky. Shrouded by the darkness under the starlit sky, it felt like nothing else existed in the world. Zero had never felt such a sense of contentment before. He constantly wanted to be close to her, and the thought of being separated terrified him. All day long, he thought about her, looking forward to when he would see her. Once he had thought that he would never feel anything close to this for another person besides Lyra. He had been wrong. Said? Why? Where were you last night? Anna asked Lyra the next day as the two friends caught up over lunch. In my room. Why? Lyra asked. Anna shook her head and waggled her finger in the air. No, you were not. I came by to look for you. It was quite late. Lyra smiled slightly. Then looked down at her food. I was with Julian, she confessed in a low voice. Ooh. Anna cooed mischievously. It is nothing, Lyra said, shrugging. Anna lifted her brow. Are you sure about that? Lyra looked at her friend. I mean, I don't know. He is probably passing time while looking for the next best queen candidate. Anna frowned. Would he really do that? Choosing another alpha's daughter after unceremoniously abandoning another would be like fueling chaos in the kingdom, right? Lyra imagined that was true. Blacksword was not a pack to be trifled with. After all, after Julian snubbed Crystal, they had already caused many packs to turn their backs on the royal family. If Julian was to choose a different alpha female as his queen, it would not bode well with Blacksword and their allies. He is the Lycan king, Lyra said. He can do whatever he likes. Just give him a chance, Ray said. She was not a fan of the negative thoughts in Lyra's head and kept insisting Lyra was being over-suspicious for nothing. You are easy, Lyra told her. A few sweet words and you are a sucker. Ray snickered. I was not the one clinging to him last night and calling him mine. Shut up, Lyra grumbled. You started it, Ray chimed happily. With Ray's persuasion, bordering on annoying persistence, Lyra decided to give Julian another chance. She pushed what had happened before to the back of her mind and started anew. Finally, her 20th birthday arrived. It was the day her parents had instructed that she open the box they had left for her, but it was still in Devon's custody. Lyra wondered whether he would give it to her, or if he would hold on to it and use it as an excuse to keep extorting her. Fortunately, her fortunes had changed. She was no longer someone he could bully into doing whatever he wanted. When she got off work that day, Beryl asked her to dress up so they could go out. Lyra had never told her about her birthday, so she thought it was a nice coincidence. Since the attack on her pack, she had never celebrated her birthday with anyone. As they walked towards the exit to head to the restaurant, Beryl suddenly stopped in her tracks and facepalmed. What is it? Lyra asked, noticing the distress on her face. I forgot my phone, Beryl said. I need to go get it. I'll wait here, Lyra told her. It is too chilly out here, Beryl told her, taking her hand and leading her towards a door. She opened it. Why don't you wait in this lounge room? I'll be quick. Okay, Lyra said, walking to the door. She had never realized that there was a lounge room there. I'll be here. Beryl waited until Lyra stepped through the threshold before pulling the door shut. The room was dark, and Lyra reached towards the wall in search of a light switch. Before she could find one, however, a beam of light came on at the other side of the room. The beam shined on a grand piano and someone sitting on the bench. Lyra walked forward and realized it was Julian. Before she could ask what was going on, sweet piano notes filled the air. Lyra quickly recognized the notes as the music to her favorite song, which she had mentioned to Julian one night while they lay in each other's arms. She remained rooted to the ground as he played the entire song and did not realize that tears were running down her face until he struck the last chord. She wiped them away as Julian stood from the piano and the lights in the room came on. Julian walked to her and held her hands before kissing her. "Happy birthday, my love." "How did you know?" she asked. "Of course I know," he said. "What sort of a mate would I be if I didn't celebrate you on your birthday?" Lyra smiled. "I did not know you could play the piano. I can do a lot of things," he said teasingly. "Did you like it?" "I loved it," she told him. "It was beautiful." "Happy to impress," Julian said. Taking her hand, he led her towards a table in the room. There was a bottle of champagne on it, place settings, and a few candles. Julian pulled out a seat for her. "Thank you," Lyra said, turning to him. "For this. I've never—" She trailed off as emotions choked her up. "No need for that," he told her. Lyra shook her head. "This means a lot to me. I haven't celebrated my birthday in a long time, or had anyone wish me one." Julian brushed his knuckles over her cheek fondly. "Let's make up for that then. I am here now. You'll never be alone on your birthday ever again." Lyra stood on her toes and kissed him. She could not put into words the emotions coursing inside her, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had found somewhere she truly belonged. Miss. Crystal woke up to the sound of her frantic maidservant calling her name. She groaned as she opened her eyes, not appreciating the rude awakening. "What is all this racket in the morning?" she demanded, glaring at the female standing beside her bed. "We have been ambushed," the maid cried, wringing her hands in front of her body. "What?" Crystal frowned and climbed from her bed. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know what is going on," the maid said. "They rushed in and detained our guards. Everybody is panicking." Crystal rushed to the window and looked outside. In front of the mansion, she saw a line of black-sword guards kneeling on the ground. Surrounding them was a group of guards in golden armor, royal guards. What on earth were they doing at her pack? Crystal rushed to get dressed and hurried downstairs. When she got to the ground floor, she spied a group of royal guards escorting her father out of the house. "Father!" she called, running towards them as they led him out of the house. When she got to them, the guards surrounded him, preventing her from getting to him. "What is going on?" "It's okay, princess," her father assured her. "Everything will be fine." "Why are they taking you away?" "It is just a misunderstanding," Alpha Black said. "Look after the pack while I am gone. I'll be back soon." "But—" The guards grabbed Alpha Black's arms and led him away. Crystal rushed after them, but more guards stood in her way and warned her to not get in the way or she would be arrested too. Soon enough, Crystal found out that her father was in deep trouble. Apparently, the Lycan King had made an announcement that morning revealing the result of a months-long investigation. He had found proof that Alpha Black had been the leader of a group of packs that had been colluding to overthrow the government. The evidence had been distributed to all alphas and councils throughout the kingdom, with the king announcing that the culprits would be dealt with right away, according to werewolf law. "No," Crystal whispered. "It couldn't be true. It was all a setup." When she heard that the Pax Elders Council was holding an emergency meeting to address the issue, she went to them. When she came into the room, they all fell silent, gloomy looks on all of their faces. Crystal went to the head of the table, where her father would be sitting if he was present. "This is a scheme against our pack," she proclaimed. "The king is afraid of the growing sentiment against the royal pack, and he now wants to use us as scapegoats to cover up for himself. We cannot just stand by and let him do whatever he wants. Miss Black, there is a lot of incriminating evidence against your father," the head of the council said. "What evidence?" Crystal yelled. "Are you dumb? He obviously made it all up to frame my father." The elders exchanged looks before one of them said, "We are afraid the proof is beyond doubt. Your father was involved in a plot to overthrow the royal pack, and he has to pay for his crime." As a council, we have decided to expel him from the pack. Crystal glared at the elder. Expel? Are you out of your mind? He is the alpha of this pack. You cannot expel him from his own pack. We can, the head elder said. That is why this council exists, to take over the pack matters when the alpha is compromised. Our duty is to do what is best for the pack. If we do not expel him, the entire pack will suffer. Crystal scoffed and shook her head. You are all traitors, all of you. None of you would be here if it wasn't for my father. He gave you everything, and this is how you repay him. He will not go down for this, and when he's back, you'll regret turning your backs on him. This is nothing personal, the elder said. Alpha Black's actions have put the entire pack in peril. Expelling him is the best we can do for him, your family and everyone in this pack. His accomplices are being stripped of their ranks and forced to live as Omega slaves in other packs. Expelling him is a mercy to him. He can start over somewhere else. No, he can't. An authoritative voice came from the door. Everybody turned to find the Lycan King stepping into the room. The elders scrambled from their seats and bowed their heads, crying simultaneously, "Your Majesty!" Seeing Julian, Crystal rushed to him and fell to her knees in front of him. Please, Your Majesty, I know you hate me, but don't take it out on my father. He is innocent. Innocent? Julian questioned derisively. He almost became your father-in-law, she kept on. For the sake of the friendship between our families, please do not expel him. Give him a chance to explain. It must be a misunderstanding. Getting engaged to you was only a ploy to investigate your father, Julian told her. I never intended to marry you. Crystal's face paled. What? I've long been aware of his secret schemes, but I did not have enough evidence to take him down. Now I do, and he'll pay for his crimes. Walking around her, he went to stand at the head of the table. Traitors have never been and will never be tolerated in this kingdom. Alpha Black will not be expelled. In accordance with our laws, I order his execution. The group of elders bowed their heads again. Yes, Your Majesty. No! Crystal screamed, crawling on her knees towards Julian. No, you can't do this. Julian ignored her and addressed the elders. Arrange the execution right away. I have instructed the court to prioritize this matter. Yes, Your Majesty, they chorused. Julian began his exit, but Crystal wrapped her arms around his legs, stopping him. Please don't kill my father, please. You should be glad you were not involved in his schemes, Julian told her. Otherwise you too would be executed alongside him. A couple of guards showed up and dragged her away from Julian. She thrashed and called to him, but he did not spare her a glance as he left. I'll kill them, Crystal slurred as her hand tightened around the wine glass in her grip. I'll kill them all. She threw the glass across the room, shattering it against the wall. Her room was a mess following her outburst. Beddings overturned, lamps broken, shards of glass all over the floor. Her father had been executed a few hours earlier. Not one person, not her relatives or the elders in the council, had tried to plead with the king to reconsider. They had all bowed their heads like a bunch of cowards and followed Julian's every word. Now, her father was dead. Her family was shamed, and their reputation was in tatters. A few weeks ago, she had thought that she would be the Luna Queen. It was a position that would have elevated her pack above everyone, but the royal pack. Their pack had been envied by others for producing the future queen. Something they had all sought for years. She could not believe how quickly everything had changed. Now, they were the laughingstock of the kingdom. She had been spurned by the king in favor of an Omega, and her father had been accused of treason and executed. Why? What had they done to anger the Lycan King so much that he would go so far to ruin their family? He had been lying to her all along. He had made her think she would be his queen, but it had all been a part of his ploy. Lyra must have been in on it. They must have been fucking all that time she was at the palace and laughing behind her back. How foolish she had been. Was Julian doing all of this to protect his Omega mate? From the moment he threw Crystal out of the palace, the tide had been going against him. Packs were against his choice of a mate, and they sided with the Blacksword pack. He must have felt threatened by Blacksword's power, so he made up accusations to get rid of Crystal's father. Now with Alpha Black gone, and the Blacksword pack trending on thin ice, there would be no one brave enough to call him out on his misdeeds. The Lycan King would do whatever he wanted, unopposed, whether it was for the good of the kingdom or not. I won't let you get what you want, Crystal swore. You have taken my father away from me. You have taken everything away. I'll take that whore from you and see how you like it. As she racked her brain for what to do next, she remembered the day the witch had spoken to her and agreed to help her deal with Lyra. It was too bad that Lyra had not died that day. This time, she would make no mistakes. Can you hear me? She asked, getting up from the floor and pacing around. I need your help again. Are you there? She waited a while, but there was nothing but silence. Help me, she pleaded. You said that we wanted the same thing. She keeps taking everything that belongs to me. I want her dead. I'll do anything. Are you looking for me? The same voice from before floated into her mind. Yes, Crystal exclaimed, looking around frantically. She stepped on a shard of glass but could hardly feel the pain. Help me! Everybody has turned against my family. You are the only one who can help me. Are you sure you want my help? The voice asked. Yes, Crystal cried. I'll do anything if you help me. Aren't you afraid of being executed like your father if you are discovered to have worked with me? The witch asked. If I die, they'll die with me, Crystal swore. I will not rest until she is dead. Well then, the voice said, you'll have to do something for me if you want my help. I'll do anything, Crystal claimed. Just tell me what I have to do. The witch laughed airily before saying, if you do this right, you'll become the Luna Queen of this kingdom. Those words pierced through Crystal's crazed mind like sweet music. She blinked. I will? Yes. All you have to do is help me get rid of the Lycan King. You want the female dead, and I want him dead. You help me, I help you. Crystal was ready to agree right away, but she could not think of any way she could get close to Julian. She could not even touch Lyra. How could she get to Julian? This could only have been possible when she had been at the palace. I don't know how I can do that, she told the witch. I have no power or means. Everybody who would have helped me has turned their backs on my family. Is there anything else I can do to repay you? Don't worry. You won't be doing it alone. I want you to work with the Rogue King. Together, the two of you should be able to give me what I need. The Rogue King. Now, that sounded like a good partner. With his resources and her knowledge of the kingdom, they could make a foolproof plan to kill Julian. All right, Crystal said. I'll do it. Good, the witch cooed. Get rid of the Lycan King for me, and I'll get rid of your enemy and give you everything you ever wanted. How can I get into contact with the Rogue King? Crystal asked, impatient to get the ball rolling. The revelation of Alpha Black's schemes sent the kingdom reeling. The packs that had lifted their voices against the royal pack retreated, claiming they had no idea that Alpha Black had ulterior motives. The royal pack's reputation was restored, and the rumors regarding Julian's mismanagement and unfairness died. By uncovering Alpha Black's schemes with clear evidence, he had shown that he was capable of keeping the kingdom safe. Now, instead of slamming him for not marrying Crystal Black, everybody was saying he was lucky. He hadn't. One of the new rumors going around was that Crystal had been sent by her father to assassinate the Lycan King. They must have thought the king was stupid. Lyra overheard one of the servants gossiping while two of them worked in the garden. Lyra was hidden behind a few of bushes, so they were unaware of her presence. It turns out he had been steps ahead of them. I was so glad when she left the palace. Another one said. She was already overbearing. I can't imagine how she would have acted once she became queen. I once heard from someone that she intended to fire all of us and replace us with her personal servants from Blacksword once she was crowned queen. I always knew Blacksword was eyeing the throne all along, even though they pretended to be on the side of the royal pack, the first servant said. But do you think the king will really marry Lyra? She is just an Omega, the second servant replied. Have you ever heard of an Omega Luna Queen? She might be an Omega, but the things she is capable of, she is a member of the king's guard. The first one pointed out, only the strongest and properly trained warriors can become the king's bodyguard. It doesn't matter, her friend said. An Omega is an Omega, period. Besides, who knows how she became a member of the guards? She must have been given the opportunity to attend the Royal Academy only because she was the king's lover. After that, do you think the trainers would have failed someone who was close to the king? Does it make sense to you that an Omega can be better than alphas in the exercises involved during training at the academy? The first servant appeared to be unsure. Well, the traitorous high-ranking officials of the rebelling packs were reduced to Omegas, so who knows? Her status can be elevated too. Personally, I think it is better for us if one of us becomes the queen. The other one scoffed. You are naive if you think she'll remain humble if she becomes queen. People change once they get a taste of power and status. Lyra was about to leave when a third servant joined the duo, her voice full of excitement as she relayed a new piece of gossip. Have you guys heard? His Majesty is holding the upcoming press conference to announce the new queen candidate, she informed the others. Lyra was aware that the king was having a press briefing that afternoon. In fact, that was where she was headed after this. She had assumed it would be regarding the recent happenings in the kingdom, giving everyone an update on the security situation. Lyra knew better than to believe the gossip spread among the palace servants. But it wasn't so far-fetched. There was a lot of speculation about who the king would name as the next queen, with many believing despite the rumors about his lover, he would choose a powerful alpha female. I wonder who it will be, the second servant said. I cannot think of anyone more befitting than Gloria of the Luminous Pack. She was always a better choice than Crystal. What are you talking about? The first servant asked. Have you forgotten about Lyra? The king threw out Crystal so he could be with her. You know nothing, servant number 2 claimed. The king was only using Crystal to investigate her father. He never intended to marry her, so him throwing her out had nothing to do with his lover. Also, if you really think he'd make Lyra queen, you are truly dumb. The best she can be is his mistress. But I heard that he told the elders he would make her queen, the third servant said. I am telling you. Servant number 2 insisted. There is no way she can become the Luna Queen. It has never happened, and it never will. Looking at her watch, Lyra realized it was time to report to her post for the press conference. She walked away, blotting out the words of the servants. It was not worth it to trouble her mind with groundless gossip. She had decided to trust Julian, and he had promised she would be the queen. That was all that she needed to know. If it turned out to be a lie, well, she would deal with it when the time came. Half an hour later, the press conference started. The room was packed with journalists, and the air was full of excitement. Lyra knew the excitement had nothing to do with the security of the kingdom. They were all more concerned about the king's queen pick, and she could bet they had all prepared many questions in that regard. When Julian began his address, he said that he was there to give updates on the security of the kingdom and make an important announcement. It was obvious from the beginning that everybody was waiting for the big announcement. That is all for the state of security in the kingdom, Julian said, pushing his file to the side. All citizens can rest assured that my chiefs of security all around the kingdom are working day and night to ensure no threat, whether external or internal, will disrupt their daily lives. Now, on to my major announcement. You could hear a pin drop from how silent the room got. Every pair of eyes in the room rested on the king, waiting impatiently. The goddess has blessed me with my fated mate, Lyra Jenkins. It has been a long wait, and now that she is here, I do not wish to waste any more time. I would like to announce that Lyra Jenkins is my choice for the Luna Queen of our kingdom. Preparations for our bonding ceremony will begin shortly. That is all for today. Thank you for coming. Ha! As soon as the last word was out of his mouth, the room broke into a clamor of raised hands and questions being thrown at him from every corner of the room. What is her background? What pack is she from? How did you meet? Is it true that she is an Omega? After saying that his communications team would provide all the details necessary, Julian put an end to the conference and left the room. Lyra was one of the guards who escorted him to his office, and when he went inside, she went after him. As he walked towards his desk, she stood rooted just inside the room. Realizing she was not following, he turned around and gave her a curious look. "What is it? I can't believe you just did that," she told him. Julian smiled and walked back to her. "Should I do it again? They haven't left yet." Lyra responded with a smile. Julian took her hands in his and looked straight into her eyes. "Now you know that I am serious, right? I want you by my side. Don't talk about leaving ever again." Okay. At the conference, Lyra had been too shocked to really process what was happening. Even though Julian had told her he had said the same thing to the elders, him saying it for the whole kingdom to hear was an entirely different thing. As emotions welled up inside her, she could only nod. Julian leaned in and kissed her gently, his kisses muddling her head further. It really was happening. After leaving Julian's office, Lyra headed towards the training complex for a session. That was where she ran into Anna and Beryl, who were eagerly waiting for her. "Congratulations," Beryl said, as she threw her arms around Lyra for a hug. "I am so happy for you." "Thank you," Lyra said, her face splitting into a wide smile. Beryl pulled back, grinning. "My cousin can be a thick one, but I knew even he wasn't stupid enough to let a good one like you go." Anna gave Lyra a hug too, squeezing her tight. "I knew it would be a happy ending for you. You two are meant to be together, period." "We should celebrate," Beryl said. "It is time for a girls' night out." "That might have to wait." Asher's somber voice came from behind them. Seeing the look on her mate's face, Beryl knew something was wrong. "Oh, come on. What now?" "The Red Moon Pack has been attacked by rogues," he informed them. "The king is calling a meeting right now. According to the information we have received from the Red Moon Pack, the attack is so severe that Alpha Devon has been unable to deal with the rogues with his troops," Asher informed everyone in the meeting room. "We need to send backup as soon as possible. We have enough to deal with already. We don't need this distraction. Let's deal with this as soon as possible so we can quickly get back to the issue with the corrupt wolves," Julian instructed. "Who'll lead the mission to the Red Moon Pack?" Asher asked. "All the security chiefs are either chasing leads concerning the tainted wolves or overseeing the situation in the rebelling packs. We'll have to relieve one of them to head to Red Moon." Those inside the room agreed, and Lyra could see that none of them had any idea who to send to the Red Moon Pack. Since the security status of the kingdom was sensitive, it was not easy to simply pull one of the security chiefs from their stations and send them on an impromptu mission. The rogues couldn't have timed their attack better. They must have known that the king's troops were busy due to the recent developments and took advantage to cause trouble. "Stepping forward," Lyra said, "I volunteer to lead the mission to eliminate the rogues." "What?" Julian asked, turning to look at her. He frowned. "No way!" "Why not?" she questioned. "I've trained for this, and I've dealt with wolves worse than rogues. You are short of hands, and it might be too risky to pull your attention from elsewhere." I am not in charge of anything, so let me lead this mission. Devon was in trouble, and he needed help. And Lyra's inheritance from her parents was still at the Red Moon Pack. If she led the mission, it would give her the perfect chance to retrieve it. You have never led such an expedition before, Julian told her. This is not an easy task. I'm very familiar with the Red Moon territory, Lyra said. That is an advantage I may have over everyone here, and it will help us better strategize on how to ambush the rogues. Having trained with Lyra, Zero said, I believe that she has the combat and tactical abilities to lead this mission. Red Moon simply needs backup. I think she can lead this mission. Julian wished Zero would shut it. How much more would he be willing to send Anna to a battlefield for her first time ever without him being by her side? He wouldn't like that very much, would he? After the meeting, Julian asked Lyra to remain behind. What are you thinking? I can do this, she said, her voice full of conviction. You know I can. The last thing I want is for you to be in danger, he said. With what is going on right now, I want to keep you in my sight. You told everyone that I'll be the Luna Queen of this kingdom, she reminded him. I cannot cower behind you. When I quell these rogues, everybody will see that I'm capable of leading beside you. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, Julian told her. Forget them. Whether they like it or not, they'll have to accept you as their queen sooner or later. It is not just about others, Lyra told him. Being the queen is a huge honor for me, and I want to earn it. Julian opened his mouth but said nothing. He rubbed his forehead and paced for a while before saying, You don't need to do this. But I want to, she insisted. He stopped and looked at her. You've always been a stubborn one. Lyra walked to him and placed a hand on his chest, giving him a smile. You like it. His lips twitched, but the worry on his face won, his brows pulled together in a deep frown. It was not that he doubted her ability. With the right people by her side, she could defeat the rogues, but things happened in war. Surprises happened, bad surprises, but that had never kept him from sending his warriors to battles before. Had it? But she wasn't just another warrior. Fine, he said finally. Lead the mission. Lyra beamed, as if she was a child who got the go-ahead at a candy store, and not a she-wolf headed into battle against hostile rogues. Thank you. You'll head out tomorrow morning, he told her. First, we go over everything and strategize. I'll personally select the team to go with you. That night, Julian showed up in Lyra's room as she prepared her stuff for the journey. He was carrying a box that he laid on the table. What is that? Lyra asked, peeping as he opened it. Your armor, Julian said, reaching into the box and retrieving a golden armor. It was designed to cover the torso and upper arms. It is gorgeous, Lyra said, reaching out to touch it. It'll also keep you alive, Julian said seriously. Yeah, that helps, Lyra joked, attempting to lighten his mood. It'll shift with you, he said as he helped her get it on. Really? She asked, perplexed. Julian nodded. The latest technology, only the best for you. He stepped back and studied her. How does it feel? Lyra took a few steps and moved her arms. It was comfortable, light enough, and did not restrict her movements. It is all right. Good, Julian said, then moved on to check her luggage. I've got everything ready, she told him. Still, he checked, ensuring she had all the provisions she needed. He decided that she needed many more things and sent notes to his assistant while Lyra protested. I'll be fine, she told him. I've survived with far much less. Now you don't have to, he told her. He went on to check her weapons, examining every piece. You must stay safe and come back to me. Once you are back, we'll have the bonding ceremony. Okay, she said, smiling. If at any moment you feel it is too much, retreat and I'll send more backup. He told her. He didn't tell her that he would be the backup. I know, she said. You already emphasized this at the meeting like 100 times. Stepping forward, she wrapped her arms around him from the back and pressed her face against his back. She inhaled deeply, taking in his scent. "I'll be fine, don't worry about me." Julian turned around and cupped her face in his hands. "I'll worry about you every second you are not by my side. So you better come back as soon as possible. Don't give those bastards any breathing space." "I won't," she assured him. "You know me. I don't back away. They won't know what hit them." A smile finally graced his lips, even though it was not enough to mask the worry in his eyes. He pushed a stray strand of hair behind her ear and said, "There is a new satellite phone model that Asher was talking about the other day. I'll ask him if we can get one." Lyra rose to her toe tips and kissed him, cutting him off. "I've got everything I need," she whispered against his lips. "Stop fretting." "But, Ty," she kissed him again, longer and harder this time. He probably didn't realize how touching all of this was: checking her supplies, getting her some futuristic armor, worrying about everything and nothing. She would never have thought that she'd ever see the Lycan King behaving like a loving wife, preparing her husband for a long journey. Lyra pulled back and touched his face gently, brushing her fingers over his brows and temple and jaws. Julian reached up and took her hands in his. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. She looked into his eyes. "Like what?" His throat moved as he swallowed. A slight furrow appeared between his brows. "This is not your plot to run away, is it? Do you really think that?" Lyra asked, smiling. She gave him a quick peck on the lips. "Of course it is not. I'll miss you. Then, you should come back to me quickly," he told her. "I will," she promised. He held her hands to his chest as he swooped in and kissed her. "There is nothing I can say to stop you from going." "Is there?" he asked. Lyra leaned in and gave him a kiss. "I'll be back before you know it." Julian grunted in displeasure, but lay back as she left the bed. He could only watch as she went to take a shower and get ready to leave. Half an hour later, she was done. Julian carried her luggage to the car, where she met up with Zero and Beryl, who were going to accompany her on the mission. Lyra, Zero, and Beryl were accompanied by a group of carefully selected warriors to the Red Moon Pack. They were all highly trained and had dealt with rogue invaders many times before. So the expectation was that they would quickly suppress the attackers in Devon's pack. The journey to the Red Moon Pack took hours. When they got to the border, they found all roads blocked, forcing them to leave their vehicles behind and go the rest of the way on foot. As they got deeper into Red Moon territory, all they could see were signs of destruction. Most of the homes were destroyed, and there was no one around, as if everybody had run away. As they got closer to the Alpha's residence, they started coming across a few rogues fighting with pack members. These were easy to subdue. However, as they got closer to the residence, the number of rogues steadily increased. Many of Red Moon's warriors were injured and fatigued, barely able to put up a fight. The compound outside Devon's residence was littered with mutilated bodies, some of which appeared to have been there for hours. As Lyra and her group approached the mansion, there was a sudden crash. A body flew through a window, shattering through the glass. It lay on the ground, motionless. A second later, someone jumped after it. Lyra recognized him at first glance. It was Devon. But there was something wrong with him. He was neither human nor wolf. Rather, he looked like a mix of both, as if he was stuck mid-shift. "Devon!" She yelled across the compound. At that moment, a couple of warriors ran from the other side of the compound, a group of rogues hot on their chase. Lyra immediately ran towards them, as did Devon. Fortunately, she thought, Devon was close enough to stop the rogues. However, when Devon reached the warriors, he pounced on them, slamming them to the ground. Lyra grind to a halt, shocked by his action. As she watched in horror, Devon struck at the warriors, tearing into their flesh with his clawed hands. "Devon!" she screamed, rushing forward. At that moment, more rogues appeared, blocking Lyra's path to Devon. She only managed to get a glimpse of Devon bounding towards the other side of the compound. What on earth was going on? This was worse than they had anticipated. "What is wrong with Alpha Devon?" Lyra yelled at one of Red Moon's warriors who was fighting near her. His physical condition did not look very good, which was probably why he was not in his wolf form. "I don't know," the warrior replied. "He turned into that monster and started attacking his own warriors. It must be the witch who did that to him. We'll all die like this." The witch. Was this planned by both the witches and the rogues? A coalition between the two was a big threat to the kingdom. Looking around, there were so many rogues who had showed up to fight Lyra's group. There were simply too many of them. A scream rent the air, followed by a few more. The sound came from behind the mansion, and after slicing open the throat of the rogue she was fighting off, Lyra got a chance to run towards the sound. When she came around the house, she saw fighting happening on the far side of the yard where the servants' quarter was located. Lyra ran across the yard as fast as she could, her gun in one hand. A few royal warriors accompanied her and started helping the Red Moon warriors fighting the rogues outside the quarters. Lyra went straight into the house, where she could hear screaming. Coming into the living room, she saw Devon again. He was standing in front of a group of servants who were cowering into a corner, pressed up against each other. "Devon!" Lyra shouted his name, moving closer. "Stop!" Devon paid her no attention as he made a move towards the servants. Lyra ran to him and, stepping off a table, jumped onto his back and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Run!" she yelled to the servants. "Go upstairs!" The servants got up and scampered towards the stairs, a few carrying those who were too feeble to move on their own. "Damn it, wake up!" Lyra yelled as she tightened her grip on Devon. He tried to throw her off, but she locked her legs around his waist tightly. He tried to get her arms off her throat, but her hold was strong enough. Finally, he reached for her and sank his claws into her thighs. It hurt enough to make her loosen her grip, causing her to fall to the floor with a thud. Devon turned and swiped at her, but she rolled away. He growled and pounced, but she sprang to her feet and stepped away from him. Reaching for her gun, she aimed it at him. "Don't come close or I'll shoot," Devon roared and charged towards her. That was when Lyra realized just how out of his mind he was. The threat of being shot would stop anyone in their tracks. But he did not care. Caught by surprise, she did not move out of the way quickly enough, and he managed to push her to the ground. His hand went for her throat, but before he could use his claws, she stabbed a knife into his arm. He growled and pulled his hand back, but it was not enough to make him get off her. Rather, it made him angrier. He lowered his head, his jaws wide open. Without thinking, Lyra grabbed his open jaw with her hands, holding it open. "Damn it!" she cursed as she realized he was way too strong. She would not be able to hold on long without losing her fingers. Plus, the longer she held on, the more fatigued she felt. Taking a risk, she let go of him and reached for her other dagger. Before he could recalibrate and make another move to bite her head off, she sunk the blade into the juncture between his shoulder and neck. That proved to be more effective than the stab to his arm. He swayed and she crawled from under him, headed towards the door. Just when she thought she had gotten away, however, she felt something grab her leg. Looking back, she found Devon holding onto her leg. "He is too powerful," Ray told her. "Stop sparing him. He has already killed many of his own pack members." "Yes, but this is not really him. Maybe there is a way. Look around you," Ray told her. "There are too many rogues. You have to make a decision." Lyra swallowed. If she could not stop Devon, she would not be able to help the others. She had to get rid of him if they were to have any hope of defeating the rogues. Devon pulled, dragging her back towards him. Before she could use another weapon to fight him off, he sunk his fangs into her leg. Lyra yelled in pain, feeling his fangs go deep until they crushed against bone. Her eyes were wide open, but her vision was blotted with black spots. The noises around her suddenly became muffled, and for a moment she forgot where she was and what she was doing. Am I dying? Just as quickly as everything had gone out of focus, however, it came back. The darkness disappeared and everything seemed way too bright for a moment. Also, the sounds from all the fighting seemed amplified. Next, she felt a familiar tingling spreading throughout her body. It was the same sensation from the first time she had shifted. A thunderous howl filled the air, and it took her a few seconds to realize it was coming from her. Lyra found herself outside the building as her body went through transformation. All fighting around her ceased as everyone, both rogues and warriors, turned to see where the thunderous howl had come from. Devon, however, was not fazed. He went after Lyra, his fangs extended and ready to strike. However, when he jumped towards her, an invisible force slammed into him, thrusting him into the air and against the wall. That force was Lyra's aura, the ripples of which everyone in the yard felt. As everyone watched in shock, Lyra transformed into a big white she-wolf, dwarfing everyone around her. The air was equal parts full of uncertainty, fear, and awe. While Lyra came to her full size, Devon got up from the ground. The thrust from earlier and the knock against the wall must have hurt, but he did not appear to be compromised in any way. He came at Lyra's wolf again with the same aggressiveness and energy from before. Lyra swiped her front paw and hit him, sending him flying across the yard. Just like that, the fighting resumed. Lyra stood over Devon, watching him get up once again. He was like an indestructible piece of machine, working despite being broken. Lyra was aware of what being under the control of witches could do to werewolves. It was possible for the target to keep fighting, paying no attention to broken limbs or far worse injuries, like a puppet on a string. As long as Devon could move his body, nothing could stop him from attacking her or others. She recalled what Anna had told her about the Wolf Mother. Apparently, the Wolf Mother could control all werewolves and communicate with them regardless of their packs. So, she should not only be able to control Devon, but everyone else. Gathering her mental energy, she sent out a compelling order: stop fighting. Lyra did not think it would work, but moments later, when the fighters around her appeared confused, she decided to give it another go. I order all of you to stop, now. As she watched, werewolves disengaged from each other, each giving a curious look around. It did not take long before they were all looking at her, having recognized the origin of the order. While her compelling order was powerful enough to make even the rogues stop in their tracks, that did not seem to be the case with Devon. Back on his feet, he charged towards her again with a mighty roar. Lyra evaded his attacks a few times as she kept trying to suppress him with her mental power. It is not working, Ray told her. If there was even a small part of him remaining, he would respond. He is gone. There is nothing that can be done about him. Lyra had never been fond of Devon, but she had come to the Red Moon Pack to save the pack, and she had not expected killing their alpha to be a part of that. But Ray was right. Devon was just like a corrupted wolf at this point. The only thing to do was to kill him. If even the Wolf Mother could not get through to him, that was enough proof that he was too far gone. When Devon attacked her again, Lyra struck him to the ground and trapped him there, then sank her fangs into his throat. She did not let go until she felt his pulse die and his body stopped moving. When she stepped back, she found all the werewolves in the compound standing in submissive poses, none of them fighting or going anywhere. Surround them, she ordered the royal guards. The guards, who were still in their wolf forms, gathered the rogues and surrounded them. One of the rogues shifted and moved to the front of the group. Then he fell to his knees. With his head bowed deeply, he said, "We surrender. Please spare our lives. Kill them." One of the warriors from the Red Moon Pack, who was already in his human form, cried. Getting to his feet, he pointed an accusing finger at the rogue. They deserve to die, all of them. Following his lead, a few other Red Moon warriors got up, baying for the rogue's blood. Silence! Lyra thundered through her mind, quickly calming down the rising clamor. I need all of them alive for now. Let us look for survivors first. Wasting no time, she quickly assigned members of her troops to different parts of the pack to look for survivors. While the rogues presented no threat under her wolf's control, she assigned a few of the royal guards to keep an eye on them at the mansion. After arranging everything, Lyra shifted and made her way back inside the servant quarters, remembering the servants who had hidden upstairs. Lyra, Beryl called from behind her. Lyra turned and found Beryl running towards her. Her friend's eyes were wide with excitement. That was impressive. I thought we would lose and then boom. Who was it that said you cannot shift? It doesn't happen often, Lyra told her. I had no idea it was going to happen. Well, your wolf is a sight to behold, Beryl said. I would hate to be your enemy. I am not really used to her, Lyra said as she walked towards the stairs. She comes when she pleases, and when you need her, it seems, Beryl said. Where are you going? There are some servants hiding upstairs. Some of them might need your help. After assuring the servants that everything was okay, Lyra led them to the mansion, where there was a designated area for survivors. Beryl got busy in the infirmary healing the injured who were brought in every minute. As for Lyra, she walked around the pack, looking for anyone needing help. There was destruction everywhere. Some buildings had been burned to the ground while others were trashed. Everywhere she went, there were either bodies or badly injured werewolves. She came across helpless pack members crying for help, some having lost their homes and loved ones. Despite the harsh treatment Lyra had received while living at the pack, she could not bear any ill thought towards them. The Red Moon Pack was now ruined beyond recognition, and they had lost their alpha. When Lyra had volunteered for the mission, she had thought it would be a quick hit, after which she would retrieve her inheritance and head back to the palace. But now, even if she had quelled the rogues, it was impossible to go back and leave things as they were. The pack members needed help. They had lost so many lives, and now they had no alpha. Leaving them to their own devices would be like condemning them to a bitter end. While she was looking around the training center, Zero appeared with another male trudging behind him. I found him. Lyra looked up and recognized the other male. It was Rick, who used to be Devon's beta. Lyra had asked her warriors to be on the lookout for him. Zero pushed Rick forward with a hand on his back. He was trying to make his way out of the pack. Rock fell to his knees and clasped his hands together. Please spare me. I am sorry for everything I did to you in the past. It was all Devon's orders, Id. Why were you running away? Lyra asked him, cutting short his tirade. No apology could make up for what he had subjected her to in the past. Were you going to leave your members to die alone? No, Rick claimed. I fought until the end and then you showed up, and I thought you came to take revenge. Any other time, she would have been happy enough to take her revenge. Do you know where Devon is keeping my belongings? She asked him. It is a box, Sid. Yes, Rick claimed hurriedly. He talked about it. I know where it is. Lead the way, she said. Rick shot to his feet and led the way back towards the Alpha's mansion. While the two followed him, Zero gave Lyra an amused look. I would offer to kick his ass after this, but I believe you are more than capable of doing so on your own, he said. I would, if the rogues hadn't already done that already, Lyra said. After leaving Red Moon, she had always fantasized about getting revenge and making her tormentors wish they had never met her. But seeing what had happened to the pack, it would be akin to kicking a dying dog. I thought I was dreaming when I saw your wolf, Zero said. What else are you holding out on us? Lyra gave him a smile. To be honest with you, I don't know. Even though she had learned a lot about her wolf from Anna, experiencing it firsthand was a different thing. Only time would reveal the mysteries hidden in her own body. Rick led the way to Devon's room, where he opened a secret door at the back of the closet. The door opened to an office. There, Rick opened a safe and retrieved a wooden box. Leave, she told him. He left the room and went with Zero to aid with the search and rescue efforts. Taking the box in her hands, Lyra sat down on the floor. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes as memories from the past rushed through her mind. The fear, the uncertainty, and all the times she had almost given up. There was a time she had felt like she had no one in the world who cared about her. But now, she had a loving mate, friends, and her wolf had awakened. Thinking of her parents, she whispered, "I'll be all right." She finally had her hands on what they left her, and she would do everything she could to make their wishes come true and honor their memory. When she left the secret office, she found that everyone who was capable was lending a hand in one way or the other. Even the rogues who were under strict scrutiny were helping with the cleanup. The rest of the day passed in a blur of cleaning up, helping the injured, and securing food for everyone. When everyone was accounted for, Lyra summoned a few rogues to ask about the attack. When they hesitated, she warned, "You asked for mercy. I will not spare you if you are not truthful. We have a tyrant king," their leader began. "For a while, he has been obsessed with attacking the Lycan kingdom. We do not have enough resources or manpower, but he keeps sending our warriors to battles they cannot win. Many of us do not agree with the war, but he is adamant. Recently, we suspect he has been working with the witches. Some of our warriors have disappeared mysteriously, and we believe it has something to do with that." "What was his purpose in sending you here?" she asked. While rogues occasionally made attacks, this was one of the most severe in recent times. If Lyra and the others hadn't arrived on time, the pack would have been completely overrun and overtaken by the rogues. Without backup from the palace, it would have been possible for Red Moon to be occupied, not simply conquered by rogues. "He wanted to wipe out an entire pack," the rogues supplied. "We did not have enough warriors, but he claimed that he would win either way. When the Red Moon Alpha turned against his own members, we realized what was happening." "If I set you free," Lyra said, "would you go back home? I would rather be a slave in the Lycan kingdom than go back." One of the other rogues said, "If we go back, he'll hand us over to the witches. He is sacrificing werewolves for the sake of the witches," the leader said. "Our lives mean nothing in the face of his hunger for power." Using her telepathic powers, Lyra probed the minds of the rogues. They were not lying, and they loathed the rogue king. Their emotions and thoughts were heavy and subdued, with no hint of a hidden threat. Lyra knew very well that not all rogues were savage monsters, whose only business was invading packs. She herself would have ended up a rogue if her plan to leave the palace had materialized. Some rogues who were forced outside their packs for one reason or another simply wanted to exist peacefully and did not take every chance to attack packs. And when they did, it was a matter of survival, since as werewolves, they needed territory to hunt and live. The Tyrant King seemed to be operating on a very different wavelength. It was not uncommon for rogue kings to attempt to invade the kingdom, but they did not do so at the expense of their subjects, seated in coalition with the biggest enemies of their kind. "You are welcome to stay," she told the rogues. "As long as you prove that you can be useful members of this pack, you'll come to no harm." The next day, Lyra's team went all over the Red Moon pack, doing security checks all over the territory. Lyra stationed warriors in all the strategic areas, ensuring there were enough scouts to raise an alert in case anyone tried a follow-up attack. While Lyra and Zero supervised the security teams, Beryl was busy in the infirmary. When Lyra got back to the Alpha's compound that evening, she went to the infirmary to check on the progress. Coincidentally, Beryl had just completed her round when Lyra got there. "Have you sat down at all today?" Lyra asked, looking at her friend with concern. Beryl was visibly exhausted, and Lyra knew that it was not only because of the physical exertion of tending to so many patients. When healers used their internal powers to heal, it drained them. Given the amount of patients with serious injuries who needed Beryl to use her own power, she must have pushed herself to her limit. "I can now," Beryl said. "Zero has been a real help around here." "Zero." Lyra asked, and at that moment Zero emerged from one of the doors leading to an inner part of the infirmary. Beryl nodded. Once he was done out there, he came over. His healing powers are quite prominent for a non-healer, you know. Lyra nodded, remembering when Zero had healed her. When he reached them, she said, "I need to talk to the two of you." "Is there anything wrong?" Zero asked, frowning. "No," Lyra replied, shaking her head. "I want to let you know that I've decided to stay, so I won't be going back to the place tomorrow as planned." Beryl and Zero exchanged glances, surprised by her announcement. "Are you sure about that?" Beryl asked Lyra. "Julian is expecting you back right away." "I can't just leave," Lyra said. "These people need my help to recover from the attack. Once I am done with that, I'll go back to the palace." "Julian was reluctant enough to let you come here," Zero said. "He'll not like this." "It is not like I am staying here forever," Lyra said. "Someone else can be sent to deal with this," Zero said. "You came here to provide backup and your work is done. The pack is no longer under threat. I am sure the palace can spare someone else to come and oversee the reconstruction." "Who?" Lyra questioned. "I came here because there was no one to spare. I can handle this, so there is no need to disrupt someone else from their responsibilities." Beryl tapped a finger on her chin, looking thoughtful. "You are not doing this to avoid Julian, are you? I know you two have had a rough pastee." "No," Lyra cut her off. "That is all in the past now. I'll try to speed things up here so I can go back as soon as possible." Lyra knew that if Beryl and Zero went back without her, Julian would also think the same way, that she was abandoning him. Before she left, he had expressed his fear that she was using this as a ploy to leave him. She had not alerted him of her plans yet, but she would, and make him see that this was the best thing for the pack and the kingdom. "Well then," Zero said, "if you are sure this is what you want, then we can't stop you. But there is a lot to do here, and it'll be a while if you do it alone." "We'll stay and help you out," Beryl nodded. "He is right. The more of us, the faster we'll be done." Lyra shook her head. "I can't have you do that," she said. "Julian needs your help back at the palace. Besides, I have identified a few people who can help me around here. You guys can go back as planned, I'll be fine." "Are you sure?" Zero asked. "These are the same people who treated you horribly in the past. They are helpless right now. They need me," Lyra said. "Besides, things are different now." "Yeah, you can kick all of their asses," Beryl joked. Sighing, she added, "Julian is not going to like this." Zero nodded. "No, he is not. He is not the only one missing his mate," Lyra reminded them. "Anna and Asher are waiting for you guys too. You should go back to them." Beryl placed her hands on Lyra's shoulder and looked her in the eye. "I trust that you can handle this," she said. "Just be safe, okay? If anything happens to you, Julian will behead us. Call immediately if you need help," Zero told her. "I'll do," Lyra promised. Beryl nodded and stepped back, looking at her watch. "If we don't go now, we'll be late for the party." The royal warriors were having a bonfire party to celebrate their victory. Everybody was invited, with even the rogues who had surrendered being part of it. Lyra hoped that the party would raise the spirits of the survivors and give them hope of a new beginning. The three of them headed to the party, which was well on its way. Everywhere Lyra passed, everybody greeted her with respect. After seeing her wolf and feeling the impact of her aura, they all recognized her as their leader. The next morning, Zero and Beryl left the pack with the royal warriors. After seeing them off, Lyra headed back to begin her efforts to rebuild the pack. Lyra gathered everyone in the community hall to start discussions on how to go forward with the pack's reconstruction. She emphasized the fact that everybody had a role to play, and that they would all work together to rebuild the pack back to its previous state. She announced that those currently living in the territory of the former Blue Knight pack would be included, and that together they would rebuild a bigger and stronger pack. "How are we going to get that done?" one of the pack members asked. We don't even have enough food, let alone building materials to repair the destroyed buildings. It is impossible to work in such conditions. Those around him agreed, with many complaining that it was impossible to start rebuilding right away when the effects of the attack were still so widespread. I am aware of all the shortages we are facing, Lyra said. That is why I need all of you to come together so that we can get things done. We need all types of skills, and I am sure we have people who are capable in various sectors among us. We'll have a group whose sole responsibility is hunting for food, while another group works as caretakers to make sure everybody has what they need. Those with technical skills will help with the repairs, and others can take care of menial tasks here and there. As long as everybody does their part well, no one will need to worry about what to eat or where to sleep at night. The members agreed with Lyra's plan, and some began volunteering for various tasks. Lyra was confident that once they divided everyone by their skills and capabilities, there would be enough workers for every sector. When Lyra asked if anyone else had a pressing issue, another member stood up. Many of us are afraid of another attack, she said. Those around her mumbled in agreement. Some are even considering seeking refuge in neighboring packs. We all want to rebuild our pack, but we have already lost enough. To protect our lives, we are willing to leave everything behind. I understand your concern, Lyra told her. Let me reassure all of you. The security of this pack is my first priority. I am putting together a security system that will ensure that nobody can breach our borders without notice. We've been repairing and stocking the guards posts since yesterday, and I've deployed enough sentries to ensure we are guarded throughout the day and night. Any alerts will come to me directly, and I'll respond to them immediately. You can rest assured that no one will be able to disrupt our efforts now that I am here. I told you, another female said, turning to the other members. If you had seen her wolf, you would not be doubting her ability to keep us safe. No one will dare cross our borders as long as she is here. If there is nothing else, Lyra said, Beta Rick will start registering the people who can start repairing homes so that you can go back to them as soon as possible. Rick stepped up to Lyra and lowered his voice. There is one problem. For a while now, the pack's finances have not been great. We might not be able to handle all the costs of rebuilding. That's why we are doing this as a community, Lyra said. We'll do what we can by ourselves. And everything will be all right. Those who don't have to take care of repairs will take care of food for everyone, and those who don't have to take care of our food will take care of the injured. Everybody gives something and receives something in return. This is the only way we can rebuild as soon as possible without putting the strain on just a small group of people. Rick nodded, realizing that Lyra's plan was the best for their situation. Devon had not been the most efficient leader, which meant that even the smallest issues on the pack always took forever to solve. It was awe-inspiring to see Lyra handle such a huge crisis so confidently and smoothly. Thank you for doing this for us, Rick told her. Despite everything that happened in the past, you still decided to stay and help us. The warriors and the pack members are motivated and hopeful, and it is all because of you. You have only been here for a few days, but you are a more suitable leader than Devon ever was. We owe you for this, and for the wrongs we committed against you in the past. You can rest assured, I am not here to settle scores, Lyra told him. Devon was responsible for how I was treated, and he is also responsible that the pack deteriorated not just financially, but also in terms of security. Red Moon is rich in resources, but rather than use them to improve his members' lives, he looked for shortcuts to increase his power and influence. You don't owe me anything. What matters to me right now is that the pack members are able to get back on their feet and resume their normal lives as soon as possible. While most of the pack members had treated her cruelly during her stay at Red Moon, Lyra knew it was because of Devon's treatment towards her. He gave specific instructions to the head servant on how to make her life more miserable and did not make it a secret that he loathed her. They would have looked down on her either way for being a wolfless Omega, but Devon's influence made it worse. Even as a wolfless Omega, as the Alpha, he could easily have protected her from ridicule and bullying by claiming her as his mate. But he did the opposite, and that was why she suffered endlessly at his pack. "We'll not let you down," Rick promised. "I'll make sure that everyone is properly assigned so we can be done with this as soon as possible." For the next few days, everybody was busy. There was enough food to feed everybody, and Lyra had also found enough healers and caretakers to watch over those in recovery. Everybody worked together despite their rank, something that had never happened before in the Red Moon Pack. Lyra settled the rogues who had surrendered in the Blue Knight territory, which had mostly been unoccupied since her pack was wiped out. Since some of the Red Moon Pack members had not fully accepted the rogues among themselves, this move helped lessen the animosity. Also, Lyra assured them that her wolf was capable of monitoring the rogues and identifying any threat, so in case any of them had an ulterior motive, she would uncover it before any trouble arose. Lyra was aware that it would be a while before the two groups could live together as one. But so far, it was a good start. The rogues had contributed heavily to the reconstruction efforts, which had made it easier for some of the members to accept them. As long as the rogues kept contributing to the well-being of the pack, they would be fully accepted by the community. On the fourth night after rebuilding began, Lyra stood on the balcony outside her room in the Alpha's mansion and looked out over the pack. There was a group sitting around a bonfire in the backyard, and the sounds of conversation and laughter filtered up to her. From her position, Lyra could also see the guards keeping watch along the perimeter of the compound. More like them were spread out across the pack, providing security not just to the Alpha's mansion, but also to the homes of pack members. Looking at it all, she felt a sense of accomplishment. There were still a lot of things to work on, but the progress was good. If they kept up their pace, the pack would be fully operational before long. Lyra's mind wandered to Julian. He had not been happy when she told him that she was staying longer, and she had done her best to put his fears to rest, assuring him she would go back to the palace as soon as she could. He had agreed half-heartedly, and given that he was giving her the silent treatment, she knew he must be mad about it. She missed him a lot, and his silence did not help things. However, as much as she wanted to see him, she could let her emotions get the best of her. He must be busy too, so the days would seem to fly by for both of them. Soon, they would see each other. Lyra was standing in a moonlit field when she noticed Julian standing several meters away from her. While she watched, he turned and started walking in the other direction. Getting farther from her, "Julian," she called to him as she started walking towards him. He did not appear to hear her, so she tried again, louder this time. "Julian." No matter how loud she called him, he did not turn to look at her. And, no matter how fast she walked towards him, she could not seem to get closer to him. Rather, it appeared that he got farther and farther away. Suddenly, someone stepped out of the shadows and stood in front of Julian, blocking his way. The stranger rushed towards Julian, attacking him. As Lyra watched, the two of them started fighting, trading blows and kicks. Lyra started running. This time she got closer and closer, and she could see the two of them fighting hard. Just as she was getting close enough to interfere, something in the stranger's hand gleamed in the moonlight. Lyra only had a moment to recognize it as a silver dagger before the stranger sunk it into Julian's chest. "No!" Lyra screamed, throwing her body towards Julian. But it was too late. The dagger was already embedded in his body, and his shirt was soaking with the color of his blood. "No. No." Lyra woke up with a gasp, the word bursting from her lips. She looked around, searching her surroundings. She was in bed. She was in her room. It had just been a dream. She placed a hand to her chest, feeling the erratic beating of her heart. She was out of breath, and her forehead was soaked with sweat. "It is just a dream," she muttered to herself. "Just a dream." And yet, even if she was certain of that fact, knowing so did not help her calm down. The dream had felt so real, as if she was there, and Julian had truly been stabbed. "What is wrong?" Ray asked her. "I just had a nightmare," Lyra replied. "About what?" Ray pressed. Lyra swallowed past an uneasy lump in her throat, Pushing her covers away, she got down from the bed and went into the bathroom. It was about Julian. Someone attacked him and stabbed him in the chest. I was there, but I couldn't get to him in time. She washed her face in the sink, then looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and terror. She had had nightmares before, but none had left her quite this shaken. "Ray, is he okay?" Lyra mumbled. "He is okay, right? It was just a bad dream." Having not spoken to him in days, she missed him a lot and naturally worried about him. But he was the Lycan King, so there wasn't much that was a threat to him. Besides, if something went wrong, she would hear about it from Beryl or Zero, right? "I don't know," Ray replied honestly. "I have a bad feeling." Lyra's hands clenched into fists. She had hoped that her wolf would reassure her and tell her that she was overthinking. "Me too. I haven't talked to him for a few days, and I thought it was because he was mad that I decided to stay, but now I am afraid that he is in some kind of trouble." "Do you think the palace might have been attacked?" "If that was the case, we would have heard about it," Ray said. "You are right," Lyra mumbled. If anything serious had happened, she would have been notified right away. But despite knowing that, the feeling that something was wrong did not abate. Making up her mind, she walked back to her room. "I have to go to the palace," she said. "Maybe he is going through something personal. I have to go and make sure he is okay." "Okay," Ray said. "Let's go." Lyra started packing her belongings, getting ready to leave. She had not planned on leaving the pack so abruptly, but it could not be helped. If she could not ascertain that Julian was all right, she would not be much help to anyone else. Lyra was not happy to leave the pack in the middle of everything, but she could not ignore her instincts. Fortunately, she had established a framework that they could follow in her absence to ensure that everything ran as smoothly as before. If it turned out that nothing was wrong, she would be back soon to keep up with the work there. As soon as it dawned, she summoned Rick and a few select werewolves who were in charge of various sectors. When she told them of her plans to leave, they looked anxious. "We need you here," Rick told her. "Everything has been going well so far because of your leadership. The pack members are also reassured because you are here with us. If you leave now, I am afraid our progress will be lost." "I am not leaving forever," Lyra told him. "I think something is wrong in the palace, and I need to go and check. As soon as I've settled any matters there, I'll be back. All of you have been doing a good job supervising what I've put you in charge of. You all know our plan, so you can proceed with it while I am away. You can always call me if you need my input. If it is about the palace, then you had better go." The werewolf in charge of the craftsmen, Xavier, said, "You have established a good system, and as long as we follow it, we'll keep up with the work even with you gone." "The security is tight too," Rick said. "Even without you here, I think the members will be reassured. Do you need anything at the infirmary?" Lyra asked Claudia, the head healer in charge of healing. "We have everything we need at the moment," she reported. "In the coming days, most of the injured will also be able to leave, so the workload and need for medicine will reduce drastically. I don't think we'll have any problems while you are gone." "Great," Lyra said. Turning to Rick, she said, "I'll need you to keep an eye on the rogues to make sure there are no conflicts occurring between them and the Red Moon Pack members. Remember that they are now members of this pack, so you should treat them equally. If there are any conflicts, I expect you to solve them wisely, without being unjust to anyone." Rick nodded. "Got it. I'll keep that in mind." After going through a few more issues, she started her journey towards the palace. She tried reaching Julian several times, but he was unavailable each time. Beryl, Anna, and Zero were also unreachable. It was quite odd, and all it did was increase her worry. Julian might be ignoring her because he was mad. But what about the others? It was too much of a coincidence for all of them to be unavailable at the same time. Had the palace really been attacked? It would be hard to hide an attack on the palace, but it wasn't impossible. Especially when dealing with witches, anything could be possible. If the attack was well orchestrated, it was possible for everyone else to go about their business without being aware that the palace had been attacked. What if the attack on the Red Moon Pack had been a distraction? Julian had assigned some of his best royal warriors to go with her. That meant that the palace was not as heavily guarded as it often was. The more Lyra thought about it, the stronger her feeling of doom became. When she thought about what the witches had done to Devon, her fear intensified. They could turn an alpha against his pack members. If they did the same to Julian, she shook her head, getting rid of the thought. With Anna in the palace, it would be much harder for the witches to breach inside and gain control. Also, Julian was not a regular alpha. He was the Lycan King. The strongest of all alphas, he would not be easy to control. When she could not reach them through her phone, Lyra tried reaching them through her mind. But no matter how hard she probed, she could not sense any of them. This made her even more concerned than not being able to reach them on their phones. She recalled how she could not control or communicate with Devon because of the spell the witches had cast on him. With her wolf's superior telepathic abilities, she should be able to reach Julian and the others. The fact that she couldn't made her more anxious, and she grew more certain that something was very wrong. Lyra drove as fast as she could, anxious to reach the palace as soon as possible. She refused to give in to despair, convincing herself that Julian was alive. As his mate, she would know if he wasn't. As long as he was alive, she would find him. Finally, after what seemed like hundreds of hours on the road, she arrived in the capital city, with only a few miles between her and the palace. As Lyra drove through the city, she did not notice anything out of the ordinary. Everyone was going about their business as usual, and she saw a few patrol guards along the streets. There was no sign that there had been an attack, and she could not sense any suspicious foreigners. Had she been overthinking? Maybe her wolf's capabilities were not fully consistent yet, which explained why she could not reach the others through her mind. It was also possible that Zero, Beryl, and Anna were sent on a mission somewhere else when Zero and Beryl got back to the palace. If they were in remote borderlands, it would explain why they were unreachable. Convincing herself that it was all a coincidence, she felt her worry subsiding a bit. She arrived at the palace gates without incident and waited to be let through. However, instead of being allowed in, one of the guards walked up to her car. When she lowered her window, he asked what she wanted in an aggressive manner. Lyra frowned. All the palace guards knew who she was, and they would let her through without question. But the guard was not familiar to her, so he must be new and might not know her identity. "I am Lyra Jenkins, a member of the King's Guard. I am coming back from a mission," she told him. The guard raised his brow and scoffed, eyeing her suspiciously. "Yeah, right, and I am the King's Cup-bearer. This is not the place to play your silly jokes, sweetheart." Lyra sat back in her seat and looked around the gate. "Where is the head guard?" "The head guard is busy," he told her. "How about you show me some identification?" "What identification?" she asked. The guard sneered. "So you thought you'd just come to the palace, drop a title, and we'd let you in? Do you think this is a bar? What is going on here?" Another guard asked, walking up to the car. "We have someone here, claiming to be the king's personal guard." The guard said, "What is your business in the palace?" The other guard asked, "We have no time for jokes, so you better state your business or leave." Looking at his badge, Lyra realized he was the head guard. The problem was he was unfamiliar to her too. Why had the guards been changed? These two had not even been part of the royal guards. If new guards were to be installed at the gate, they would have to be members of the royal guard. "Call the palace and confirm my identity," she told them. "If you don't have the proper identification, we cannot let you through." The head guard maintained, "If you don't leave right away, we'll arrest you." "Get me through to Alpha Zero," she told them. "He'll confirm my identity. If I am lying, feel free to throw me in the dungeon. The two guards exchanged glances at the sound of Zero's name. How do you know Alpha Zero? Taking it as a positive sign that they knew who she was talking about, Lyra said. I was on a mission with him, but he reported back first. He was thrown in the dungeon for colluding with a witch, the head guard told her. If you still insist on entering the palace, I can arrange for your reunion so you can join him. Lyra frowned. What do you mean colluding with a witch? Zero would never do something like that. He mated with a witch. Didn't you know? The guard asked. He was working with her against the royal pack. That is ridiculous, Lyra muttered. Who would make such an accusation? And why would Julian believe it? He was the one who had allowed Anna to stay in the palace to aid with investigations against the witches. How on earth had it turned out like this? What about Beryl? She asked. She is a healer and part of the royal family. She can confirm my identity. She was ordered to go back to her pack. The head guard replied. Ordered? Lyra echoed. Why? You are wasting our time, the head guard told her. You can leave, or we can take you to the dungeons to reunite with your friends. Do you think we have nothing better to do, or are you here to spy on the palace and launch an attack? I am leaving, Lyra said, slowly backing her car away from the gate. Through her side mirror, she saw the guards watching her until she disappeared from the vicinity of the palace gate. After driving for a while, she parked the car by the roadside and got out. Pacing, she tried to make sense of everything the guards had told her. What had changed while she was away? Why would Julian accuse Zero and Anna of working with the witches? Zero would never work against the royal pack, and Lyra was certain that Anna would not betray them. And then there was the issue of the guards who did not recognize her. Something was not right, and she had to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible. Getting back into her car, she took a road that led farther from the palace gate. She abandoned her car in the woods, then approached the palace wall through a deserted area. Climbing up a tree, she spied some of the guards patrolling on the inside. Once they walked past that area, she waited 5 minutes before climbing down and clambering up the wall. She dropped onto the other side and crouched low. Quickly, she rushed towards the nearest building, which was several meters away from the wall. When she got to it, she plastered herself against the wall and stopped to catch her breath. Not even a second later, she heard a male voice asking, "Did you hear that?" Lyra remained as still as possible, holding her breath. The voice had come from the other side of the building, right around the corner. "Hear what?" a second voice asked. "I think I heard footsteps," the first voice said. "Let's look around this corner before we head back."